Good afternoon, all of you. Today in this video class, I'm going to tell you about one important aspect, that is rights of an unpaid seller. And this is nothing but part and parcel of the Sale of Goods Act. Don't be of that opinion that it is different. It is nothing but part and parcel of Sale of Goods Act. But this is very, very important. Rights of unpaid sellers. So when we say that a seller is unpaid, we can say that the seller is unpaid when he won't get any amount. He will give the goods, he will deliver the goods, but the amount which was due to him, the price which was due to him for the goods delivered, if he won't receive, or if the buyer, if he won't pay that, then we can say that he is said to be an unpaid seller. And this unpaid seller, when he won't get the money, when he won't get the price of the goods, whatever he delivered, he will have some rights. Okay, he will have some rights. And what are the rights that will come across? Okay, jus in rem and jus in personam. These are the two rights that an unpaid seller will get. So what is jus in rem? Against the goods, and jus in personam, against the person. So these rights he can execute, okay, whenever he is not paid their amount for the goods. And we will come across some sections in this category. Now, one by one, I'm going to tell you about this rights of unpaid seller. Against the goods and against the person, against the buyer or against the person. Okay, in this against the goods, again, two things will come. Where the property in goods has passed, section 46, subsection 1. Second thing is, where the property in goods has not passed, section 46, subsection 2. These are the two sections that we come across when we go for rights of unpaid seller. And this, where the property in goods has passed, again, it is divided into three types. First one is lien, L-I-E-N, lien. And according to section 47 to 49, you'll come across this lien. What do you mean by lien? Lien is nothing but the goods delivered and the price will be taken afterwards. That is, the person, he can take back the goods and he can, whenever the buyer, when he pays, then only he will return the goods to you. Okay, that is nothing but lien. Second one is stoppage in transit. Section 50 to 52, 50 to 52, section 50 to 52. Okay, this thing, they will take into account stoppage in transit. And the third one is resale, resale of the goods. When the property in goods is not passed, Okay, next, second thing is, where the property in goods has not passed, that is section 42 under section 2, I told you. Okay, there you will have two things: withholding delivery, stoppage. Next, stoppage in transit. Okay, when the goods are going to the buyer, we can stop that and we can ask them to come back. So that is nothing but stoppage in transit. Okay, these are the things that we come across against the goods. Now coming to against the person. Okay, just in persona. Okay, we will come across four types. First one is suit for the price. Section 55 will take care of that. Stoppage in transit. Okay, section 56 will take care of that. Repudiation of the contract, section 60 will take care of that. Suit for interest, section 61 will take care of the act. So like this, you'll come across again as a person. Once again, I'm repeating that. Suit for price, Section 55, stoppage in transit. Section 56, repudiation of sale or repudiation of the contract, Section 60, and suit for interest, Section 61. These are the various things that we come across. These are the various rights that a seller, okay, who won't get the money for the goods, whatever he delivered. Okay, so like this, you'll come across different subheadings, different categories or different rights for the unpaid seller. Now, one by one, let us go for the rights in detail. Right of unpaid seller against the goods. When the property and goods is passed to the buyer, the unpaid seller has the following rights against the goods. Against the goods, not against the buyer, please. Mind it. Now, right of lien. A lien is the right to retain possession of goods until payment of the price is paid to this unpaid seller of the goods who is in possession of the goods. Okay, where the goods have been sold without any stipulation as to the credit. The goods have been sold on credit, but terms of credit has expired or the buyer becomes insolvent. In that case only, you'll come across right of lien. Okay, the right to retain possession of goods until payment of price is made to the unpaid seller of the goods who is in possession of the goods, comma, where the goods have been sold without any stipulation as to the credit. So they won't tell that whether they are going to purchase the goods on credit. Like that, there won't be any stipulation. There won't be any saying. The goods have been sold on credit, but the terms of credit has expired. Okay, even though they sell on credit basis, okay, the terms of the credit, when they expire or the buyer becomes insolvent, in that case only the seller has this right of lien. Okay, the seller may exercise right of lien, notwithstanding that he is in possession of goods as against as an agent or bailey for the buyer. So when you come across this right of lien, the seller may exercise the right of lien, notwithstanding that he is in possession of goods as an agent or bailey for the buyer. He is not an agent, he is a bailer, he is a principal. Okay, so in that case, he can go for right of lien. Okay, what are the important points that we come across under this? The lien depends upon actual position and not on title. Actual position, but not on actual title. The position of goods by the buyer must not be expressly excluded the right to lien. They are under the right to lien only, the position of goods. Next, third one, the lien can be exercised by the unpaid seller only for the price and not for any other charges. So when you go for this right of lien, the seller, he will ask about the price, but not any other charges. He won't give much importance for charges. He will give importance for the price of the commodities. Next, when the unpaid seller has made post-delivery of goods, may exercise his right to lien on the remainder. Post-delivery of goods. After delivering the goods, suppose if he won't get, then how can he go for this right of lien? When the unpaid seller has made post-delivery of goods, may exercise his right on lien on the remaining items. Some items he delivered and still some items are with the seller. In that case, he can exercise the right of lien on the remaining goods. The unpaid seller having a lien, there does not lose his lien by any reason that he has obtained a decree for price. Yeah. Having a lien does not lose his lien by any reason that he has obtained a decree or decree for price. So the seller, one thing you have to keep in mind is the seller, he won't get any loss. He won't lose anything. Okay. And that he has obtained a decree for the price. Decree means, okay, whatever it may be, the expenses that we come across for the seller, all the expenses along with the price are to be paid by the buyer. Whatever it may be, the expenses, whatever it may be, the charges, those things also, they must be paid to the seller. Mind it. Termination of lien, not transmission, termination of lien. When the unpaid seller delivers goods to a carrier or other person for purpose of transmission to the buyer without reserving the right of disposal, then only when he gives the goods to a carrier or any other person for the purpose of transmission of goods to the buyer without reserving the right of disposal, he won't have this right of disposal, disposing. The buyer lawfully obtains possession of goods. The seller waives his right of lien, either by express or implied, on the goods. So when the buyer, when he obtains the goods, the seller waives the rights, cancels, removes the right of lien, either by express or implied on the goods, by orally or by the conditions prevailing. He can do that. Then only you will come across the termination of lien. Okay, the second one is 50 to 50, 50, 50 to 52, section 50 to 52. Right of stoppage in transit. This is the right of stoppage, stopping the goods in transit after the unpaid seller has partake with the position of the goods. Okay, he can stop in transit. He has further right of resuming possession of goods as long as goods are in transit and retaining possession until the payment of price. He has the right. He can call back and he can possess the goods. Okay, he has further right of resuming possession of goods as long as goods are in transit. Okay, he'll stop that and he will ask those people to come back or bring back the goods as goods are in transit and retaining possession until the payment of price. He can retain the goods until the payment of price. It is available to unpaid seller when the buyer becomes insolvent and when goods are in transit. This is the thing. This right of stoppage in transit, when you come across, whenever the buyer, when he becomes insolvent, okay, then only the right of stoppage in transit will come into picture. It is available to unpaid seller when the buyer becomes insolvent and when goods are in transit and on the way. Okay, so this is about the right of stoppage in transit. Now, duration of transit. We have to take into account the duration, whether the duration time period, whether it is very short period or very long period, we have to take into account duration. Transit is an intermediate stage. Goods are deemed to be in transit from the time they are delivered to carrier for the purpose of transmission to the buyer until the buyer takes delivery of them. We have to take into account the time period and the time duration. The carrier may hold goods as seller's agent or buyer's agent or an independent capacity. Transit comes to an end if the buyer obtains the delivery of goods before they arrive at the appointed time, appointed place. Okay. The carrier may hold the goods as seller's agent or buyer's agent or an independent capacity or in an independent capacity. Transit comes to an end if the buyer obtains the delivery of goods before they arrive at the appointed destination. And after the arrival of goods, the carrier acknowledges to the buyer that he holds the goods on his behalf. When the carrier wrongfully refuses to deliver the goods to the buyer, and part delivery of the goods has been made to the buyer, and the remainder of the goods may be stopped in transit. The unpaid seller may exercise the right of stoppage in transit by taking actual possession of the goods or by giving notice of his claim to the carrier. So this is when we are sending the goods, when the seller is sending the goods to the carrier, and he will tell that, okay, you have to deliver the goods at this place, at the place of destination. The carrier may hold the goods as seller's agent or buyer's agent or in an independent capacity. Transit comes to an end if the buyer obtains the delivery of goods before they arrive at the pointed destination. And after the arrival of goods, the carrier acknowledges to the buyer that he holds the goods on his behalf of, on the buyer's behalf of. When the carrier wrongfully refuses to deliver the goods to the buyer and part delivery of the goods has been made, in any case, has been made to buyer, and the remainder of the goods may be stopped in transit. The unpaid seller may exercise the right of stoppage in transit by taking actual possession of the goods or by giving notice of his claim to the carrier. Then the seller will come into picture, and then only he will get the goods back, whatever it may be, the remainder goods. Now, let us go for the differences between lien and stoppage in transit. Okay, there are 4 differences. Differences between lien and stoppage in transit. First, lien. Unpaid seller can exercise this right when the buyer is able to pay but does not pay. That's all. He can able to pay, the buyer can able to pay, but he does not pay. Then only you just right of lien will come into picture. Here, the unpaid seller, he can exercise this right. Now, stoppage in transit. Unpaid seller exercises this right only when the buyer is insolvent. Mind it. Okay, stoppage in transit when it was executed. Okay, when the buyer becomes insolvent, then only the seller can exercise this right of stoppage in transit. Now, coming to the second difference. This is exercise on goods in actual or constructive possession of the seller. It is right of lien is completely related to the goods only. Don't be of that opinion that it belongs to the person. It related to the goods only. Okay, this is exercise on goods in actual or constructive possession of the seller. Okay, this is the lien. Okay, now coming to the stoppage in transit. This can be exercised when the goods are in possession of a middleman between the seller and the buyer. So right of stoppage in transit will be in the middle. The goods will not be with the buyer and or with the seller, not and. The goods will not be with the buyer or with the seller. It will, when they are in the hands of a middle person, then only the right of stoppage comes into existence. Now we are going for the third difference. It comes to an end when the possession of goods is surrendered by the seller. Okay, it comes to an end. That is right of lien will come to an end when the possession of the goods is surrendered by the seller. Okay, we'll come back. They'll come back. Now, stoppage in transit. It commences when the goods are left. The possession of the seller continues until the buyer has acquired the possession. Stoppage in transit. It commences when the goods are left. They are going. The possession of the seller continues. The possession of the seller continues until the buyer has acquired the possession. Until the stipulated buyer or particular buyer, when he takes the possession of goods, then only the right of stoppage in transit will come into picture. Now, fourth one, it is the right to retain the possession of goods. It is the right to retain the possession of goods. Okay, With the whom? With the seller. Mind it, with the seller only. Now, it is right to regain or resume possession of goods. It is a right to regain or resume possession of goods. This is by the buyer only. Okay. So these are the differences that we come across. Okay. Now, after that, what is the third right of the seller against the goods? Right of resale. The unpaid seller can resell the goods when they are perishable in nature, or when he gives notice to the buyer of his intention to resell the goods, as the buyer does not within a reasonable time pay no price. Okay. So the right of resale. The unpaid seller can resell the goods when they are perishable. Whatever it may be, the goods, when you come across, when they are perishable in nature, the seller has a right to resell them. Okay. And one thing you have to keep in mind is the seller has to intimate, has to give notice to the buyer that he is reselling those things or perishable in nature, or when he gives a notice to the buyer of his intention to resell the goods, as the buyer does not within a reasonable time pay no price. Okay. If there is a resale, there is a loss to the seller, that is difference between the contract price and the amount realized on resale. When he intends to go for resale, automatically the loss must be suffered by the seller. How, sir? Okay, with the difference between the contract price as well as the amount realized on, say, resale. This is the difference that we come across, and this thing, it should be borne by the seller only. Okay. Contract of sale is not rescinded by excess of right of lien or stoppage in transit, but also a right of resale. Now, contract of sale. Okay. Contract of sale is not rescinded, comes to an end. Is not closed, rescinded by excess of right of lien or stoppage in transit, but also has a right of resale. Then only we can say the contract will come to an end. It will be closed. Okay, this is the third difference that we come, this is the third right that we come across between, okay, the seller and the buyer. Now, when the property and goods has not passed, okay, previously when the property has been passed, previous thing is when the property, where the property and goods has passed according to section 46 subsection 1. Now we are going for 46 subsection 2. Okay, when the property and goods has not passed, right of withhold in delivery. When the property and goods has not passed to the buyer, the unpaid seller, in addition to the above rights, can exercise the right of withholding delivery of goods. This is the thing that we'll come across. Okay, apart from the three rights, that is right of lien, stoppage in right of stoppage in transit, and right of resale. Along with these three things, he has another right, that is nothing but right of withhold in delivery. That is the thing that we come across. Now we are going for the personam, just in personam, that is against the person. Rights of an unpaid seller against the buyer personally. Okay, here before going to this, I want to tell you, you'll come across withholding delivery and again stoppage in transit. So whatever it may be, the stoppage in transit that we come across earlier, the same thing will repeat over here. So that's why I'm not telling about the right of stoppage in transit again. Okay, now we are going for just in personam, that is rights against the person. Right of withhold, rights of unpaid seller against the buyer personally. These are the rights which an unpaid seller may exercise Okay, again as the buyer personally, these rights are known as rights in personam. They are rights in personam. They are suit for price. Which section? Section 55, suit for price. Second one is suit for damages. That is stoppage in transit, and this is also a stoppage in transit, but we'll go for damages. Section 56. Next, repudiation of contract. Section 60. Section 60, repudiation of contract. And the last one is suit for interest. Section 66. Section 61, sorry, not 66. Section 61. Okay, these are the things that we come across, the rights of an unpaid seller against the person. Now, one by one, let us go for that. Suit for price. When property has passed to the buyer and the buyer wrongfully or refuses to pay for the goods, the seller may sue for the price of the goods. And when the property has not passed and the price is payable on a certain day, irrespective of delivery, and the buyer wrongfully neglects or refuses to pay, a seller may sue for the price. Okay, I told you already, the unpaid seller, he will go for the price of the goods and not for any charges. The same thing, suit for price. Okay, when the property has passed to the buyer and the buyer wrongfully or refuses to pay for the goods, the seller may sue for the price of the goods. And when the property has not passed and the price is payable on a certain day, okay, the buyer has to tell that I'm going to pay you on this day. So that certain day, okay, when the price is payable, and the price is payable on a certain day, irrespective of delivery. Okay, you should not take into account the delivery. And the buyer wrongfully neglects or refuses to pay, a seller may sue for the price. Next, okay, second one, suit for damages. When the buyer wrongfully neglects or refuses to pay for the goods, the seller can sue him for non-acceptance. When the buyer wrongfully neglects or refuses acceptance to pay for the goods, okay, the seller can sue him for non-acceptance. You see, first of all, he will say that, oh, I am going to accept, don't worry. And after that, he neglects or refuses to accept. Then the seller can go for, then the seller has the right to sue for non-acceptance. Secondly, the need to give customer courts more power to effectively, with a wider range of violation of consumer rights. The amendment stipulated a specific time frame of 21 days within which the court has to decide the admissibility of a complaint. Yeah. Secondly, the need to give consumer courts more power to effectively, with a wider range of violation of consumer rights. See, after some time, the consumer courts, they'll come into picture, and they are given some rights. Okay, they are given some powers. Secondly, the need to give consumer courts more power to effectively, with a wider range of violation of consumer rights. The amendment stipulated a specific time period of 21 days within which the court has to decide the admissibility. Okay, the seller and the buyer, they are given 21 days. And after 21 days, the court has to decide the admissibility of a complaint. Then only they'll take that as a complaint. This is regarding the rights of unpaid seller that we come across. And in the next video class, I'm going to take into account another important topic for your purpose. Thank you.